You are now about to witness the strength of
Shama
Llama.
Ding Dong.
Two friends with a passion for combat sports. One's an actor, the other's a ring announcer. Together, we bring to you the CLDD Podcast. Everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of the Shama Llama Ding Dong Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ventura. I'm with my co-host, Aaron Stewart. And in the middle, we have a special guest, our very first special guest on the CLDD Podcast. He is the reigning, undisputed BFL Featherweight Champion of the world, Radley Snake Guys the Silva.
Could have sworn, that Ryan does that for like a living or something. You can.
Yeah, I thought I'd have to wait till the next BFL to hear that one.
So, how's life been, champ?
Since the fights?
Yeah.
Good, man. I've just been literally just eating and relaxing and training here and there, but mostly eating. That's taking up most of my time.
Nice.
spending time with the daughter and stuff like that. And yeah, man, just getting ready. Just it's like a hibernation after a fight. You like regroup, eat a bunch of stuff, relax, and then after you got to get out there and go look for some new food when you're done.
Yeah, for sure. Now, congrats on your title defense. It was a big fight at BFL 82 against Drew Brokenshire. Can you talk us through that win, that leg lock in the first round, where you really opened up Drew and eventually secured the win? How did it feel to fight through that adversity?
Oh man, it's exactly what I needed. Every opponent I face, I feel like they bring a brand new challenge, and the challenge with Drew was just his experience and his toughness. Like, he was super tough, experienced dude. Like, I hit him with some great shots at the start of the fight, like on the feet, and he was able to recover quick and get right back in there. Got to take down all that, and I was kind of slightly disregarding his jiu-jitsu because I train with such good guys, and I'm in that leg lock position all the time, and I rarely ever get tapped like that. So I kind of just disregarded it, and then next thing you know, when I tried to actually pull it out, I realized it was a lot harder because I had that ankle brace. So I was trying real hard to get it out, and I really couldn't. But long story short, the ankle didn't actually do anything. The ankle lock, it was the calf slicer after the heel hook that he had on. That one actually hurt way more, and it actually made my knee sore for the subsequent days after the fight. It's still kind of like a little aggravated feeling from that calf slicer, but from the ankle lock itself, it didn't do anything at all. I'm fine on the ankle, but it was good to just to experience. I mean, I've gone through that before in my honestly, almost every fight, I feel like my opponent will try to slap on some submission, and it looks kind of deep. Like, even in that Macaloon fight, I was in a Americana or something, and then in the South Sea fight, there was a guillotine. It's so I feel like because of that, that was a test that I was ready for. Not to want to tap in a big moment or anything like that. Be able to just stay calm and work my way through that. And it was good though. It was great, man, because it gave the fans some excitement. It had them on the edge of their seat.
For sure.
Radley, first of all, I just want to say thanks for coming onto our little podcast and being our inaugural guest and everything. And I was just telling Ryan just before you jumped on that how does it feel coming off of two very viral style finishes? Is that do you find a lot of these organizations are looking for those exciting, kind of gruesome finishes, or are you just more focused on going in and getting the job done?
No, man, I never focus on any of that stuff. I'm the opposite. I work way too hard to be trying to focus and limit myself to say, I want to get a flashy finish, because anything can happen in a fight. Anything could go wrong, and I've actually put myself in that position before. My first professional fight, I went in there thinking, man, I don't have to train for anybody. I'm just way too good. I literally stopped training 2 weeks before my fight, just chilled, smoked weed, smoked me the day of my fight. Like, I didn't care, man. I didn't give a crap. And I went in there, dominated the guy for 3 rounds, and then the last like couple minutes of the fight, I got put in one bad position, and I was so gassed. I just said, "I'm done. I'm out of here." And like that's how I lost my first pro fight. So that taught me like an amazing lesson of like, never expect to just go in there and blast someone out, finish them quick. Always, train your ass off for any situation. Expect to go to the distance, because if you expect to go to distance and you finish it early, that's just like a cherry on top. That's just like, oh, wow, great. But if you go to distance, you're like, this is what I was ready for. So you're not going to be in there panicking when it starts going way longer than you expected. Mm-hmm. And obviously to train my ass off. But yeah, no, as for your question, no, I'm never in there looking to get those kind of finishes. They just come naturally from having a really good training camp and all the hard work and, just getting to go out there and show all the work I put into throughout the camp.
For sure.
Sweet. Yeah.
Now, I actually saw an article on Fight Week, promoting your last fight against Drew Brokenshire. It was on UFC.com. He's a good friend of mine. He's the guy that interviewed you for UFC.com.
Yeah, Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer. Spencer's a really good guy. He's been in the scene for a long time, and he does all the pieces for UFC.com. You were mentioning to him that, like, you're not really in any big rush to get to the show. Like, you basically, like, look at every fight that you're going into as like, a sort of way to get more cage time, more experience, more comfort. Do you ever feel like, some fighters make the jump to the big leagues too soon? And, do you feel like you still have some unfinished business in the BFL?
Yeah, man. I feel like, that is what I said in the interview, because it's true. Every time I go in there, I feel like I improve that much more. And to your point about guys going too early to the UFC, yeah, it happens all the time, man. And they'll go in there, have 2-3 fights, and then they're done. I don't want to be like that at all. I want to leave a legacy, a lasting legacy for my family and everyone to remember. And to do that, I feel like to give myself the best chance is to have the experience before going into the big show. You don't want to learn on the job in MMA, right? It's too dangerous of a sport. So I want to learn all this stuff. It's like, this is like my pre-test or whatever it is, all the regional fights. And there's no downside to me getting more experience. Like, I trust in my abilities. I really believe that I'm one of the best in the world and I should be able to fight anybody outside the UFC. So me getting the experience, it definitely does not hurt my fight career at all. So I already said, like, when I was asked like what's my goals for the year or whatever, I said I wanted 1 or 2 more fights before I fight in Contender series. So it's looking like perfect timing, because I've been hearing around that they start signing for it in May. And when I was talking to people about how I want my year to kind of turn out, I told them that I want to have fought twice before May. I don't know, it was just kind of the date that I wanted to have some time to rest, so if the Contender series comes up like a couple months later in summer, early summer, then I could be ready, right? I'd have like a training camp. So, and yeah, I guess it works out because they start signing for it in May, and I wanted 2 fights before then. I got 1 done, and Battlefield already has another show scheduled in April. So, and it doesn't even have to be in Battlefield. Like, personally, I don't feel like I have any unfinished business in Battlefield. Like, I'm already like, how many belts do I have? I don't know how many more guys have defended that belt more than me. I think the most is like 5 or 4. So I'm like right there with 4, and I already have another title, regional title in RFC. Like, so that's like 5 championship belts. So at this point, I'm kind of done with 5-round fights. I kind of want to just stick to 3-round fights, because that's what I'm going to be fighting for the majority of my UFC career until I start getting to the main event, right?
That's true.
So I really want to get the more 3-round experience, that's for sure, because it's a different pace. It's a different intensity. So yeah, hopefully the next one I'm trying to get is not going to be a title fight and not a 5-round fight, hopefully a 3-rounder.
Okay.
Yeah, we noticed in your call out, obviously in your post-fight interview, that you got the crowd going, got them really excited about potentially making that move up to the UFC. You mentioned with Contender series. So what is that process like for someone who doesn't know? Like, do they have any of these organizations like reached out to you in your management yet? Or is it something that you do on your own end? What's that process like?
Lucky. Yeah, I have like, someone who's like in contacts with the UFC matchmakers, and I actually got to meet one of them at the Edmonton show in Canada late last year, and yeah, he specifically told me he's like he saw my viral knockout, he's impressed by it, and he knows my record and age, and he was hoping to get for me to get at least one or two more fights in before he starts signing for a Contender series next year. So when I talked to him it was late to 2024, so he was saying hopefully you can get a couple more fights in before I start signing for it. That would make like your case way stronger. Because I don't have like a huge record or anything, right? So, and that's exactly what I'm looking to do and what I've done. So, yeah, hopefully one more really good performance, and I can get the call up there to the contenders and stuff. But if not, like I said, I'm not one of those guys like who's like, I need it now. I need it now. This is it. I'm just happy and living the journey, man. Because there was a time where I wasn't able to get a fight at all. Like I have like 8 years time in between my career where it's like I had 6 years off, took a fight, then another 2 years off, then I started fighting again. So that's 8 years in between where I wasn't fighting, and just to be able to fight in itself is like the blessing. So I'm happy just living the journey right now, man. I have a goal, like I have a destination where I want to get to, and I'm taking a step at a time. There's definitely no rush.
Sweet.
Awesome. Now, on the last episode that Aaron and I had, we were recapping your victory and, being very complimentary of it. We were talking about how basically what you did was something equivalent to what people would do for a driving test. So, during a driving test, people would be like, okay, the tester is looking for how you park, how you shoulder check, how you make your certain moves in the vehicle. Well, the UFC matchmakers, when they look for like fighters, they look for guys like, how do they handle adversity? Are they marketable? Do they have great striking? Do they have great grappling? Are they charismatic? To us, you've met all the prerequisites that the UFC is looking for. You fought like champions from other organizations. You beat all-American wrestlers. You beat veterans that sent people to the UFC. I mean, if you had it your way in terms of your next matchup, whether it would be Battlefield or potentially, opening up the card in Montreal for the UFC, like what kind of fighter would you like to fight next to kind of test your abilities and help expand your skills?
I just want another tough prospect, man. Like I've literally had my whole career with guys that, are on massive win streaks, coming off wins, and that's the kind that's kind of like my MO of guys that I'm fighting. So that's why it was kind of like fighting Drew was like he was coming off a win, but it was still like it was a different feel, and I actually had to like mentally prepare myself for like not fighting a prospect, up and coming. So it was a different feel. So I want to get back to fighting those prospects, or maybe even a veteran who's like in his prime, or someone who's like proven, but he's still like right there at the cusp. And just like I always the tougher the matchup, the harder I work for it, and the brighter the lights are, and the more I shine when I get in there. So I really need those kind of tests to push me to like get better and improve myself in outside of the cage when I'm in training camp, and to get better inside the cage when I'm in there performing. So I'm always looking for like a tough test. Like I said, I've never fought someone coming off a loss, and I really don't plan on doing that either. A lot of guys, if you look at their record, there's like their combined opponent record is like a losing record, or like 50-50. Like if you look at mine, like I only have 6-7 fights, but my combined opponent record is like 50 wins, like 15 losses. So it's a very like win heavy record. Are the guys I'm facing, and I tend to keep it that way all the way to the UFC.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Tapology resume, and like you've pretty much like fought who's who of up and comers and veterans in this country. Like you never took an easy fight. Like even back in the day when you fought in Quest for Glory, when I introduced you in your very first fight back in the day against Morgan Littlechild, like that guy, like, he's a high level jiu-jitsu guy and everything like that. And, going up, you fought like the likes of, John Nguyen and, of course, Mike McAloon. None of these guys are easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never gone into a fight having more fight experience than any of my opponents. Like I've always had less fights, less experience. And I don't mind. I don't mind taking that road, because I've been training my whole life, right? So for me, it's like, do you have the confidence now, and the ability to translate that in the cage. And I've been doing capoeira my whole life, so I feel like I perform better when there's a crowd and it's like a performance on a stage type thing. So that's why I feel like I do better in those situations anyways.
Yeah. I really appreciate what you said about like just being on the journey and taking every fight with like new experience. I guess for any of our listeners that don't know, you train at Pinnacle MMA. It was run by Dennis Kang. Can you talk about what like his mentorship, his guidance? He's obviously a veteran of the sport. What's it like having a guy like that in your corner and kind of being in that coach mentor role for you?
Yeah, man, Coach Dennis is like it's impossible not to like completely respect what he's done for Canadian MMA, right? So he's definitely one of the pioneers, and like it just makes it that much easier to listen to his instruction. And he's got a wealth of knowledge behind him, and like people don't know, man, Vancouver has like a lot of like UFC veterans and guys that have been putting on for Canada. It feels like the East Coast gets a lot more of the shine lately because they have guys in the UFC currently, but West Coast was doing it earlier on. Like GSP was like the main dude on the East Coast, him and David Loazo. But we had a lot of dudes here as well on the West Coast, and I feel like I want to help bring that revival. Like me and my team, like Jamie, and the V, that like just like bring back the hype to Canadian MMA on the West Side, and with a guy like Dennis Kang behind us, like leading the crew, it's that much more. It brings that much more like pride, kind of, to like help that lineage of West Coast MMA like continue on.
Oh yeah, man, and he's a massive part of that history. Like, he fought, I'm sure like he has like stories for days, because he shared with me some stories about like, the old NHB days, the no hold barred days, when like they fought with no gloves. It was underground stuff. Or like when they did wear gloves, their gloves were like, they weren't even gloves. They were like weightlifting gloves that could barely protect your hands.
Yeah, man, he's got an endless amount of, there's a wealth of MMA knowledge. It's funny, actually, in the back for that Drew fight, he grabbed me for a sec. He's like, Radley, I want to work this position. Like, you go on top in half guard, and I'm gonna like get my butterfly hooks in to kind of like set up for a ankle lock. And then we drilled that, and we drilled like what I should do. But then when I got in the fight, I was just like, this is nothing. And then I got next thing, and I'm in trouble. So I felt bad because I'm like, dang, Coach Dennis actually prepared me for this situation in the back, and I feel like I let him down. But at least I didn't tap, or I didn't, it wasn't fully in. So it was good at the end of the day.
Now, we want to kind of expand upon your martial arts history. You mentioned capoeira is a massive part of your life. I believe like I'm one of the few people out there that have introduced you, your dad, and your brother in the cage. Right? So that's,
my cousins too, Marcus, both of them, like both the Marcuses you've introduced. So you've introduced the whole family, man. Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
So the question was, your martial arts history. Clearly it's very deep. Your dad was involved in it for many years, your brother, your cousins. Like, how did this journey in capoeira start? Was it like literally like, when you came out the womb and your family was involved in this?
Yeah, it was more like, well, my dad went to Canada when I was like really young, like I think when I was like 3 or something. So he was there for a few years, and then he brought us there. And yeah, since like from when we landed, we started doing capoeira like right away. So I started like had my first belt when I was 5, and basically just trained all the way up until I started doing high school wrestling when I was 14. That's when I stopped doing capoeira and focused just on wrestling for a few years. But before that, I was only doing capoeira and some jiu-jitsu here and there, and just watching, my dad, Marcus, and Vinny, like they all fought in the ring to represent capoeira, right? So it wasn't even fully sanctioned yet here in Vancouver, like professional fighting, MMA at least. And they would go to those like BCIT tournaments in the ring, like brawl it out. They'd have their like capoeira pants on while fighting, and it was just like, yeah, it was just back in the day. It was so awesome. And I would always watch that and think to myself, dang, I can't wait to do that, just to represent capoeira. Like I never thought of it as like a career or anything special. I just thought it was going to be something I had to do, like as part of representing capoeira as a martial art. And then, I started watching UFC when I was probably like 10. And I remember watching, Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner, like live on Spike. It was like so awesome. I remember we recorded over our like Toy Story VHS tape to like record that. And I just thought it was awesome, man. I never in my wildest dreams thought it'd be like a career or something you could like, provide for a family for. I just always thought that I wanted to represent Capoeira and my family in the cage at some point. And then, when I started doing wrestling and all that, and then I had my first amateur fight, and then I started realizing, I'm like, I think I could actually make a career out of this. When I started seeing like John Jones and Anderson Silva, like, win all these titles and GSP and stuff, I'm like, wow, you can actually like have a career out of this. So then I started thinking like, this might be something I want to do, but, things in life happen. Like I got separated from my family for a few years. And then when I was 18, I linked up with, my cousins linked me up with Caleb Starnes, the former UFC fighter, and I started training under him for a few years. Well, it was more like a year, but during that year, I had my first pro fight, and then after that, I didn't get to fight for another 6 years, and then I had that fight with John Nguyen, and then another 2 years, and then here we are now.
Awesome. Go ahead, Aaron. You got a question for him?
Well, this is a bit of a silly question, but you said, in between fights, in between camps and stuff, you like to eat a lot of food. What's your go-to, like right after the fight? Like, what are you like craving? Like the second you've done after the weight cuts? Because we know, like, I mean, Ryan and I watch from the outside, but these weight cuts can be really, really rough and really restrictive. So what's your like, let loose post-fight meal?
Honestly, the whole time I'm just dying to have some fruit juice, man. Like really? I like Del Monte passion fruit juice. They call it like maracujá in Portuguese, but I'm always dying for that passion fruit juice for some reason. Del Monte, it's so freaking sweet. But no, usually I'm just having like, a good steak and stuff. But right now I'm letting loose, man. I've had like the other day I had like a smash burger. Just before I got on this call with you guys, I think it was like 3 or 4 of those like Korean hot dogs. I don't know if you know what they are. They're kind of like breaded.
Yeah.
And like, they're like corn dogs or something, but they're like really weirdly breaded. And I just had like 4 of those before I got on here, man. I'm stuffed. So it's like right now I'm kind of letting loose. My weight's not even that high. Like a lot of times I get up to like 180, 182, 184. But right now, like I'm still pretty relatively low. Like I'm only like 170, 172. So it's good because I started training again, like, like a day on here, a day off, day on. And it's keeping my weight low. So I don't think I never have too much trouble cutting weight anyways. Like I'm always like, I get down in 4 weeks, I'll cut down from like 180 to like 155. And then I'll do the water cut for the rest. But it hasn't really been a problem in my way at all. So I like to enjoy myself after. And right now I like to diversify what I'm eating.
Of course. So do you ever, like obviously you're mainly fighting at featherweight right now, but has there ever been any room for you to like be at 155, or you're just still trying to kind of find out where you feel the most comfortable? Or
no, I actually had my first Battlefield fight back against McAloon was at 155. So
sweet.
I can definitely fight 155. No, if you sometimes like I'll post a picture and like my friend Naveed, he fights he's the 155 champ now. Yeah. Right? Like I'll have pictures with him and you see me next to him. It's like I'm like taller, I'm like 10 pounds heavier a lot of the times, and it's just like he's just lean muscle. That's why it's harder to cut weight, right? So everyone has different body types, but yeah, if you see me walking around outside of camp, you definitely wouldn't think I'm a 45 or so. Whatever the opportunity, if there's a good fight at 155, like I'm more than willing to take it, especially now that I'm looking for 3-round fights. So I'm open to 145, 155, whatever it is. And you know how it is with the UFC too, right? If there's a short notice opportunity, up a weight class, down a weight class, you want to be the guy to be like, I'll take it, because they favor those kind of fighters.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Especially like in this country, it's always good to be ready. Look what happened to Tristan Connolly when he fought Michel Pereira, like on super short notice, really short notice.
Yeah, no, I was there for the whole process of that. It was pretty awesome, us having to get him ready in the like 1 week. We're like, oh, you're fighting a Capoeira guy? Okay, let me just throw crazy shit at you for like the next few days. I mean, but he's been training with our family for like our family trained at Adam Ryan's gym for like years already, and with him, right? So he was already more than used to like seeing all that wild stuff. So it was like a perfect fight. They didn't even know it.
For sure, for sure. Now, like, speaking of like, different stuff outside of the cage, like, it's pretty well documented, like, the kind of work that you do outside the cage. You're involved in film, you do some stunts here and there, and like, you also do the mocap for the UFC video game. I think a lot of your family does that, don't they? They do the mocap for that game.
Yeah, just me and Marcus are mainly the ones. So I mean, still to have two guys in the same family doing that is pretty unheard of too. So but it's kind of like the perfect role for us, right? Where we both act, we both fight, and we both are really good with body movement and body control, right? So it like is literally like a perfect job, like perfect glove fit for us to get in there and do it. And yeah, man, it's definitely like it's still something that is like almost unbelievable every time we get to do it.
And I saw recently, like you let us know, like if someone was to create a fighter in UFC 5, your voice is in it, right?
Yeah, if you want to have like do a career mode, I mean, it's not like a secret anymore.
Yeah,
You can go.
secret, yeah.
Yeah, it's out. The game's out, so you can go make a career mode character, and then you have to choose like your voice and stuff. And like I'm voice one, and I've watched some videos online of people creating characters, and they go to voice one, they're like, "Why does this guy voice sound so like soy?" And I'm like, "Oh, you bastards!" So it's still cool. It's still awesome. It's like a childhood dream to be able to like play a video game and be like, "Wow, that's me!" Like the whole time through. So yeah, definitely super grateful with that.
For sure.
Sweet.
Now, Aaron, do you have any more questions for the champ?
Honestly, man, I think you've touched on everything, and it's just been really great just hearing your experience, your background, and just letting us in. And like, again, thank you so much for just jumping on and being our first guest. And
for sure, man.
Congratulations as well with the recent win. Like that's incredible win. Like that was a gory win, and I think a lot of us MMA fans we like to see the exciting stuff like that. So
it's like, yeah, it's either you knock them out cold or you at least make it a little gory, right? If you're going to get to submission, like break an arm, put him to sleep, have some blood in there, something. But I was going to ask you guys, like, do you guys do any like breakdowns or predictions for like upcoming UFC events or anything like that?
I mean, like, yeah, we do like, some recaps and everything here and there. There's already like so many breakdowns and all that. But if that is something that you're interested in, we would most definitely love to have your expertise and we could talk it out.
Yeah, for sure, man. If you guys ever want to do that before the fights and stuff, I'm more than down. I used to do that myself. I used to have like a YouTube page and all that stuff where I would do like MMA news and breakdowns and stuff. And I only had it for like maybe a month or less. And I almost had 1,000 subscribers in like a month. And then I got copywritten 3 times instantly and letting my account deleted. And I just said, forget this. I'm never doing it again. Because it was a lot of work. It actually was a lot of work to like get clips and, edit it on DaVinci and like splice it with your stuff and in the audio. It was actually a lot of work. So it was fun. It was a good experience. But like, oh man, when they took that away from me, I'm like, I'm done with this. But I'd love to help other people because like I've been doing a lot of like sports betting on the side with MMA, and I'm pretty good. I'm pretty darn good. Like I'm pretty profitable. So if anyone ever needs help before I get to the UFC where I can't bet anymore, yeah, I'd love to freaking talk some stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll touch base and, we'll most definitely collaborate. We really appreciate having you on the show. Now, before we end it off, where can people find you? And, of course, you want to plug your sponsors, anyone that supported you. Here's your floor.
Right now, just on Instagram, Radley _ Silva. I'm probably going to end up getting an X account or Twitter or whatever. But for now, just on Instagram. I don't post as much as I should, but if you ever want to see like upcoming fight news or anything like that, or highlights of the old stuff, whatever it be, just on Instagram, Radley _ Silva. And shouts out to my sponsors, Fairfax Partners, MGN Construction, Ashek Capoeira, Action Promo, obviously Pinnacle MMA, Strike Recovery, and those guys just for sponsoring me for the last fight.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, we don't want to keep you very much, champ. One last time, the reigning, undisputed BFL Featherweight Champion of the world, maybe in the UFC in a few months, maybe Contender Series, or maybe he's going to defend his belt a few more times. The one and only Radley Snake Eyes de Silva. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, brother.
All right, take care. Have a good evening.
See ya.
See you, man. Wow, man, our first guest on the show.
There you go, man. I think that went pretty well.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's a, like we were talking about before, like off the air, like, these are the kind of stars that, you want to keep your pulse on, someone who's respectful, someone who's talented, someone who's well-spoken, and, his fighting style speaks for itself. Like,
Absolutely.
if he wasn't charismatic and he didn't really talk much, and if he wasn't like such a respectful guy and all he did was just fight, like his fights alone are must-see TV.
Oh yeah, man. And I think that, it's really exciting for us, especially, just in the regional scene, in Canada, just watching someone come up and like you said, with, when you talk to some of those guys out in Edmonton, and like, they know who he is. So it's not like he's just, from like an actor's perspective, it's like me going down to LA and like, hey, pick me. But like, he's got a lot of, got a momentum on his side that's going to put him in a good position. They know who he is. So that's already like, half the battle there. And if he just keeps doing what he's doing, and also, like you said, he speaks well. He comes from a great background. He's really respectful. He has a really good like mythos about why he fights. And he's a good representative for Canadian MMA and Brazilian MMA, of course. And I just think that like, it's great to have guys like that to be transparent, and he's not a bad talker or anything like that. He just lets the work speak for itself.
Exactly. Now, speaking of the work, we have some work to do. We have to let's quickly look back on what happened in Saudi Arabia last Saturday. So there was this card. Main event was Israel Adesanya versus
Nasruddin Imavov.
Imavov, right? So like, what an upset. What
Absolutely,
can
man.
we talk about?
Well, here's the thing, man. I think that, we can all agree that the fight against Strickland was a very strange performance from Izzy. And I think everyone agrees that he just didn't seem like himself in that fight. And he took some time off. I think it was about a 10-month layoff when he came back and fought DDP. And to be honest, in my humble opinion, he was, and same with this last fight, he was winning these fights until he wasn't. He looked great. He was really tuning up Imavov on the feet. He was like, his takedown defense was spot on. And I think he just got caught. I think a lot of people are wondering, like, where does he go from here? I think that we're going to see Izzy fight again sometime this year. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to be sitting on the shelf. He never licks his wounds. He's never like down on himself. He accepts things the way they are. He's, like what else does he have to accomplish? I mean, as a fan's perspective, watching him lose like that, it's disappointing. And, that then taking nothing away from Imavov, who has very slowly been climbing the ranks and being a bit of like a sneaky contender. I would really like to see Imavov fight Caio Borralho, one of the fighting nerds. I think that'd be a good fight, because as big of a win against Izzy is, I think that middleweight's in a little bit of a standstill in a way, because you've got Hamzat waiting in the wings. I believe he is the backup fighter for this weekend against Strickland and DDP, but and we don't know about all the travel issues or visa issues or whatever. I don't really know anything about that. I don't think it's wise of me to comment if I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think Imavov is right there, and I think Izzy could win one more fight. And he's back in the mix. It just depends on what he wants to do.
Yeah. And like, I think at this point in time, like Izzy has already done so much in such a short time in his career. He's not obligated to ever fight ever again if he doesn't want to or not. He's like, I think it's fair to say he's considered one of the greatest middleweight champions in this promotion's history, or in the sports history.
Absolutely. And then when you look at that list, you're looking at guys like Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, Rich Franklin. So the list isn't particularly long. So, and he's done, like even after he moved up to light heavyweight, which I don't recommend he goes up to light heavyweight. I just think the size is just too big of a jump, because that 20-pound weight jump is significant when you're fighting guys like Jan Blachowicz and, obviously Pereira's up there, but these are big guys. I think you know, like he could be right back in there. And he did have 3 straight title defenses after going up in light heavyweight. So, like he was one of the most consistent champions that they had. One of the hands down, one of the biggest stars, with the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? I think that he really tapped into like a younger demographic.
Yeah,
I think that he was a really good representative for that. But you know, if he wanted to get into acting, if he wanted to do different things, like his star status is cemented. So I don't know what's next for him. Yeah, it's absolutely deserved. So I don't know what's next for him. I recommend you watch his documentary that came out last year. It's called Stylebender. It's a really good, it's a really good, he's very transparent, very vulnerable about who he is. And I think that, especially in a very masculine, heavy, warrior-like sport, well, it is a warrior sport. He's a breath of fresh air in terms of just like what the UFC offers in star power, which I think right now, I think the UFC's kind of has a little bit of like a lack of stars right now, to be perfectly honest. So I'm really curious what he does next, but he can do whatever he wants. I think that I look forward to it's always an event when he fights. And we'll see what happens, I guess.
I need to go on X later on, maybe after the show, because like I believe I read something about like you're mentioning one of the fight nerds, Caio Borralho.
Yeah.
Like, there's something in the works for him.
Isn't he?
I think it's Vettori. He's supposed to fight.
I thought it was Whitaker, but maybe I'm wrong there.
Or was it Whitaker? Actually, no. I think you're correct. It is Robert Whitaker. That's a big fight. That's a big test.
Which is huge. Yeah. And like you say the same for Whitaker. Like some of these guys, they've really cemented their legacies, and I think that they're company guys. They do a really good job, and maybe we're just kind of in like a new era of the middleweight division and the sport in general. I'm really curious about like kind of what upcoming fights are coming, but I mean, it was an interesting card. I think that some of the fights just didn't live up to where they could have, especially the co-main with Sergey Pavlovich and Rosenstrike. Bit of a stinker in terms of heavyweight.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it just came out recently that Jairzinho Rosenstrike was cut after that fight, which is a bit of a surprise because he was on a bit of a win streak on the way to this fight.
Yeah, and I think it seems
2-fight win streak.
2-fight win streak, which at heavyweight, is a pretty good momentum.
That is massive.
I'm surprised that someone like Rosenstrike never fought a guy like Derek Lewis. I feel like that fight was like right there.
That was a missed opportunity.
Because I don't think Derek Lewis has any fights right now, but like he's the same guy. He could win 3 and then come back and win 1. He's right back in the mix. So I think that's a missed opportunity to have 2 guys who haven't fought each other go at it, and I think that's a great matchup. Be really exciting. So it's a shame. Maybe his contract ended. There's more to it that we don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe they just didn't want to renew it.
That's very possible. That is extremely possible. And it was very surprising that the fight went that way, just because Rosenstrike is a high level heavy striker, and Pavlovich is well known for his striking too. So it was very surprising that it turned out that way. I believe at the presser, Dana White said it was one of the worst heavyweight fights next to Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou. Those were
I mean, like, and you put these guys on paper, and like I said, I want to apologize. I said that was the co-main, which obviously the co-main was Michael Page and Shara Bullet. So we'll obviously talk about those guys, but even with the Pavlovich versus Volkov fight, like I was literally looking around at my friends. I'm like, this fight lasts no longer than 2 minutes, and it goes to decision. Same with this one. Did not think this fight would even. Like I just feel like it's I called these ones pretty poorly, but I was expecting that to just be over in about 1 minute.
Yeah.
Crazy knockout from either guy. So
it was a minus 800 on Bodog for Rosenstrike and Pavlovich to go to for it to end before 3 rounds.
That's wild.
minus 800, and I think it was something crazy, like it was plus 1800 or something like that for it to go the distance.
That's wild. And like some people are like, oh man, there goes my parlay. Would you think, that's like the obvious choice, right? That like,
yeah, that killed my
it's
parlay.
hard to guess.
That killed my parlay.
Ah, man. It's like, it's just too hard to tell what's going to happen with these fights. You expect something's going to happen, but I don't know. I mean, there's so many different factors that could have been part of it, but I mean, Pavlovich, he won. So like Dana said, he got the W. So interested to see where he gets lined up next with, maybe Pavlovich versus Almeida. I still think the Almeida Cyril Gane fight should be made, but Sergey's in the mix there. It's so crazy. He was like the boogeyman for the heavyweight division right up until Aspinall knocked him out on short notice. And he's kind of having a little bit of growing pains right now. But again, heavyweight's such an influx division that really anything can happen in a short period of time, right? So
yeah, exactly. It's the giant revolving door.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But let's talk a little bit about the co-main, which was Michael Venom Page taking on Shira Magomedov. That went to a decision, and that surprised so many people. I mean, it's Michael Venom Page. He's an OG vet, Bellator legend. He's been in the game for a long time, but not many picked him to beat Shira Bullet.
Yeah, he was when the lines came out, he was an underdog, and to be honest, I just think that everyone continues to count Michael Venom Page out. I think like we've seen him with these like really stellar knockouts and finishes, and I feel like he's still trying to maybe get his rhythm at the UFC. He's just such a puzzle, and if you think about it, like if Ian Gary didn't have to resort to grappling and take his back in the third round, Michael Page would have actually taken Ian's in that fight when they fought was that when they fought in Miami? No.
Yeah.
I think they fought on the Ilya Volk card in Anaheim last year.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember.
Let me just double check.
Yeah, let's see here.
I'm just trying to see where it was. Yeah, UFC 303, Pereira versus Prohaska 2. So that was actually
right. That was right. That was supposed to be the Connor card. Yeah, that was supposed to be the Connor.
That was
yeah. Okay, that. Right. That makes sense. That was that whole card was riddled with last minute changes.
Yeah.
I really like watching MVP. I like his showmanship, and I think that the UFC should really lean into his, his gravitas, so to speak. I think that he's just like a really fun guy to watch, and then on the flip side, looking at Shara Bullet, it's his first loss. I mean, this might just be in one of those too much too soon situations yet again. I think that if they really want to build these stars, they have to kind of slow the roll just a little bit. I know that the look of Shara is he wears the pirate do-rag, and he's got the one eye, and it's really marketable. But I think the same thing can be said about guys where you just want to see them do fun fights. You want to see them showcase their skills, and they don't need to jump into the top 15 so quickly,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's still a solid victory for Michael Venom Page.
Oh, absolutely.
Against Shara Bullet. Shara Bullet was undefeated prior to that. You 100% could be right, though. That could have been too much, a little bit too soon. But I mean, I think it was a good step up in competition for Shara Bullet, and it's only, it's only gonna get better from here. I think his potential's so high.
Well, yeah, even what Radley said at the beginning of the interview is that he went in on his first fight and he was hyper confident, and unfortunately, like you said, he lost that fight in the later moments of the third round, and it's just continuously been a learning experience for him, and since then he's gone on a tear. So again, we've talked about this before, that 0 at the end of your record isn't indicative of where you will go in the sport. I think Shara has a very high chance of fighting for a belt in the future. I I'm really curious to see what Michael Page does in terms of I know he wants to come back down to 170. He looked really good at 185.
I agree. I feel like he belongs at 185 personally.
I mean, sure. I mean, especially when he's in like the later part of his career. So I think that, it doesn't seem the cut doesn't seem to bother him too much, which is great, because the longer that goes on, like, and we obviously know the cuts are difficult, but, yeah, man, I'm interested to see what Michael Venom Page does. I think he even tempted the idea of going up to 205 and fighting Yuri Prohaska. I'd watch that. I don't know if that'd be a good fight, but I'd watch it.
Yeah, for sure. I would actually. Oh man, if MVP versus Yuri Prohaska,
that'd be crazy.
That would be an insane fight. Like that's like like honestly, that would literally be one of the most exciting fights that you can make from a rankings perspective. It doesn't make sense just because, like, Yuri's a title contender in light heavyweight right now, but Yuri seems like, he sounds like he can go down the middleweight, and like it would just be a fun fight to make.
Absolutely. And I think that at this point Yuri's looking for a cool fight. I mean, like if you're looking at like fights that would sell pay-per-views, like that's right there. These guys can do whatever they want. I just think if it makes sense, but I'm personally more interested in what Michael Venom Page can do at 170, being that that's been kind of like his home weight class for the majority of his career.
True. True.
I think that he's getting to a point though where like he's shown that he can operate at that weight and look pretty sharp at it. So I guess, yeah, we'll just see. I mean, he didn't seem like he took too much damage. He looks like he wants to fight again soon. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he does next.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm just looking at like the middleweight rankings compared to the welterweight rankings. I feel like if Michael Venom Page wanted to go on one title run, because like, he's 37 years old, he has quite a bit of mileage, but if you want to go for one title run while you can in the UFC, the time is now in the middleweight division, just because it's not as wrestling heavy compared to the welterweight division's rankings. Like I'm looking at, obviously you got the champion Bilal, you have Shavkat, you have Kamaru Usman, and even like in the
Sean Brady, you got a lot of these guys.
Sean Brady, heck man, like I know Colby Covington is, he's not a spring chicken anymore, but he's still a high level wrestler. You go to middleweight, like the highest level wrestler in the top 15 is Jarrett Cannonier.
Yeah, and and not for us to say anything about anyone what their career paths are going to be, but outside of Bo Nickel, you're not looking at a lot of heavy wrestlers in that division.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Hamzat's just like a freak of nature. So
and I think like we're running a little bit low on time. Like, and we'll get to like a little bit of the pay-per-view coming up, but sticking to middleweight, like I think with Bo Nickel, the UFC is gonna do what they did with Sugar Sean O'Malley and not rush his development. They're going to like they're gonna give him bite-size after bite-size challenges on the road to the top of the ladder. So that way, like Radley was saying, he gets better with cage time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And more experience is invaluable. The more experience, he's gonna learn more about, like his gas tank. He's gonna learn about like how to operate with different fights. Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of MVP being at middleweight, and we'll see what happens. There's plenty of fights for him to jump in there. I look forward to that. Hopefully, hopefully there's something cool in the works for him.
That idea that you put in my head about Yuri versus Michael Venom Page, I'm just gonna put it out there to the fight gods. Please make that happen. Let's have a Ryzen champion versus a Bellator champion inside the UFC cage. Maybe in Saudi Arabia somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, man, just throw money on it. Like, is that your weekly hypothetical things that you want to see happen?
Yeah. That's
Hear me out here.
Yeah. The weekly hypothetical segment coming soon to the CLDD podcast. Now, with the little time that we have on this call, we're gonna go over to UFC 312. It's gonna be happening in Australia. It's gonna be headlined by the reigning defending champion Dricus du Plessis taking on Sean Strickland in their second fight against each other. This is a rematch. there isn't a whole lot of hype for this card, except for obviously the main and the co-main that the world's talking about.
Yeah. Well, this is a rematch, obviously, from when they fought in Toronto of last year, when Dricus took the title in a very close split decision. Look, I'm not a huge Sean Strickland guy. I'll say it, for a variety of reasons. I think when he gets all, we're going to die in there tonight, and then he has like the most ho-hum fight you've ever seen. I think you can't just operate with defense. I'm sorry. I just don't think that's like, I think like I was listening to the Mighty Cast with Demetrius Johnson, and he said, what's the best tactic to go against a guy whose main focus is defense? And Dricus just says relentless offense. which is what Dricus does. Dricus is like the weirdest freaking fighter. Like, he has this crazy IQ where nothing makes sense with how he approaches fights, but somehow in mid-fight he's like adjusting, whether that's a grappling perspective or he's striking. I think that Dricus, now that he has that win over Izzy, he's been the champ. He's defended his title. I think that he's got a little bit more confidence. His gas tank seems to be like oddly bottomless. I will take Dricus in the fight. I don't know if it's going to be a close decision again. I think it will end by TKO, but I mean, I don't know. I say that, and then then something like Strickland versus Izzy happens. So who knows?
Yeah,
but I would like to see Dricus do well.
Yeah. I myself am a Dricus du Plessis guy, just because like the way that he pressure fights, it reminds me of some people might want to kill me for this, but it reminds me of like a modern day Wanderlei Silva, where it's like, just go forward, throw everything but the kitchen sink at the guy. And if all else fails, score a takedown, even if the takedown isn't the sexiest takedown you've ever seen.
No, absolutely. I think that Dricus is just like, he has the potential to just like keep growing his star power. Like he's charming. He's like this. He's like the antithesis of a Sean Strickland. He made Sean Strickland cry in a press conference, which I just thought was hilarious. Yeah. There's just, middleweight still, it's not my favorite division, but I think it has the potential to be a pretty exciting fight.
Yeah. Now, well, you gave your prediction. You said Dricus du Plessis TKO. You know what? I'm gonna go and say that du Plessis is gonna take Strickland down and choke him out.
Sweet.
Yeah, I could see that.
It could be exciting. Yeah. And then the co-main, which is like a really sneaky good fight, because you've got Weili Zhang, who is quite possibly, I think, one of the most relentlessly hyper athletic, not just women, but like fighters in the sport, period.
Yeah.
And she's taking on Tatiana Suarez, who for like the longest time has been kind of touted as like the female Khabib. Really interesting. I don't know how Suarez makes it down to what she fights at 125.
Yep, she makes it.
Like she's big. Like she's big for as a fighter, and she's just been ripping through people. So I think this is like kind of the fight we've been waiting to see at strawweight.
Sorry, 115. I should say 115.
115. Sorry, thank you.
No worries.
But yeah, I really like this fight on paper. Weili is just like the athleticism is ridiculous. But
the fight
Tatiana Suarez fight IQ is crazy. I just don't know. I honestly don't know how this one's gonna go, because I think that, like, off the top of my head, I expect Suarez to really utilize her wrestling, but on the same token, Weili is like incredible defense. Works really well off her back. Has great striking. So I don't know. I really do. I hate like being on the fence, but I'm gonna take Suarez by submission. But I'll probably be egg on my face. So
I mean, honestly, like I'm not gonna hold that against you, just because, like, if you look at Suarez's professional record, I mean, yeah, like maybe they're pretty close in age. Like Weili's 35, Tatiana's 34, and like Tatiana has like 10 wins, no losses. not including her amateur fights from back in the day. But like, you know, Weili has miles, and we on this show and like, you know, in fight conversations in general, we always talk about mileage, and Weili has over 30 fights to her record. And you know, when she has lost, and it hasn't happened that often, when Weili has lost, it's been pretty violent, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, she had that some great fights against Rose. So yeah, but like ever since she lost the belt to Rose, she's been on a bit of a tear. Got the belt back from Carla Esparza. Really tuned up Amanda Lemouche. That fight at UFC 300. She basically finished Yan Xiaonan in the first round, but then somehow she came back and that went to a five round decision. But I mean, she, like you said, she has got a lot of those championship 5-round fights under her belt that are very indicative of her experience. So maybe experience might be the thing that decides this fight. She's been in there with like really, really top talent. You know, like 2 times with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, which, as we know, the first fight was like the best female fight of all time.
Yep, I agree.
In my opinion.
I fully agree.
And then came back to knock her out with a spinning back fist a couple of years later. So like, she's really fought the best of the best. So maybe this is, you know, maybe like a changing of the guard in a way with Suarez, or maybe Weili continues her reign. And I would just love to see Weili move up and fight Valentina. If that were to happen, that'd be a great.
That's a dream match.
Great, absolutely. So
I mean, like, if hypothetically, if Weili wins this fight against Tatiana, she should move up to 125. She should,
absolutely,
right? There's nothing.
I can't think of anyone else. Yeah, I can't think of anyone else that she would fight. I know there's a few title contenders at flyweight that Valentina could entertain, and I'm sure. You know, we talked about that Montreal card. We kind of went through the who is potentially available on that card. So I assume she might fight at that card, or maybe they'll hold her off. I don't know, but I have a pretty good feeling that Bilal Shavkat will headline that card. I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen. But yeah, I think after this fight, we'll see what happens. But if Weili comes victorious, I would say like the next logical step is for her to fight Valentina.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I feel like this is a great time to close out the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Radley De Silva, Snake Eyes, the reigning defending BFL champion, for coming onto the show, our first guest. Aaron, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram at Aaron Paul Stewart. Yeah, that's probably the best place. It's where I'm most active. And yeah, I guess we're looking forward to some good fights this weekend. Hopefully they deliver, because sometimes these sleeper cards actually turn out to be some of the best of the year. So
yeah, I agree.
Let's see.
I agree. Well, that about wraps it up from my end. Like, from our end, not my end.
Our ends. Both ends.
That wraps it up for both. You can find me on the internet.
Amazing.
All major social media platforms, Ryan Ventura 604. Thank you for listening to the Shama Lama Ding Dong podcast. This has been episode 4. Check us out on Spotify and YouTube. We're going to have some cool new segments, more cool guests, and more fun conversations. You know, lighthearted MMA conversations. And trust me, Aaron, we've been talking about this a lot lately. You know, we want to try to spread positivity in the sport. We want to highlight the wonderful up-and-comers in the sport and highlight the good things about the sport. Because
we're definitely more interested in the good guys, championing the good guys, inspiring stories. You know, there's to MMA standards, you know, sometimes there's some spicy news. We don't want to focus on that. We want to focus on the good guys and the good girls. So absolutely, man. It was absolutely awesome to have Radley on the show as our first guest, and hopefully we'll have him on again, maybe do some breakdowns, or have some more guys on the show and see where we go. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah,
it was great. Well, thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone. We'll all chat soon, and we'll chat soon. You guys will listen soon.
Awesome.
All right, take care, guys.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.